Another tractor day. I'm having to interrupt the job. You'll see here in the back, there'll be a video coming pretty soon when I finish. We got radios and salt spreader controller in the floor pan, or no, the rubber mat is out of here, and there's some wiring going on up there. But I'm having to put that on pause for now. Another video coming on that. I got to do some prep for a bush hogging job tomorrow, and of course we're going to clean out the grill. You've seen me do that before, but here's one of the things. You'll see this panel go on here. One bolt holds it in, and then there's some slip-in piece. This panel that's usually here comes out super easy, and but you can tell again it's the same old issue. Got a lot of stuff from the last bush hogging job that's down in there. So I am going to be doing a little bit of compressed air from the side just to get what I can out of it. Down in here, we'll see. Actually, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot come out. We're just going to get as much of that out of there with the air as we can, and then it's actually pressure washing time. Let me fold this back in a little bit so I can get in. If you'll look, I can use the compressed air back in there, and we'll see how much it does, but I can't get behind it and turn it. I don't really have like a 90-degree blower or something like that. But this is a lot more of the fine dust, which actually would have come from the last road scraping job. It was very dusty, pulled in a lot. I had to clean the filter a couple times. But we're going to be using the pressure washer on that lightly. I do not want to bend the fins or any kind of damage on those. I'm pretty much going to be wetting it, letting it soak a little bit, pushing a little bit harder, just seeing how that responds to it. So we'll get started on that. All right, before I get started on the pressure washing and a little bit cleaning out the radiator and all the little heat exchangers, but got this big bad to the bone Ryobi electric, 1.2 gallons per minute, 1900 psi. I really don't need a super power to do a lot of the stuff I do, just getting the general dirt off, and I got tired of dealing with fuel and everything else, and honestly this little cheap thing serves the purpose for most of even getting mud out of my tracks and a little bit of flow. Some other areas maybe something bigger, but this was cheap and a good option for it. So it's a small job here. Let me get started. All right, if you'll notice, this is a fuse block and some other electronics, and the new circuit breaker for the wiring project that's going on. You'll see loose ends. Those are not hot. They're just not connected to anything yet. But I went and covered this up with a good old Amazon bag just to keep that dry while we're doing this. Now you can see the benefit of this cheap pressure washer, 1900 psi versus 3 or 4 or 5,000 psi. Nothing is bent there. Of course, I was doing a light approach on it, but you can find some spots. You can see through the exchanger where I've sprayed, pretty darn clean. And then you look down and you see the other dirty parts down below. I'm gonna have to get some other angles, maybe even take the battery out to get to that. But this is going to give me everything from cooler, all the cooler exchanger, another one, the radiator, another one. So you've got oil, you've got your AC unit. It's up on top. That's coming up to the front to exchange whichever direction it's set. And you'll hear the little pressure reducer there on the pressure washer there kick on every once in a while when it loses pressure. But I'm going to go ahead and actually clean the engine a little bit. The engine's not hot. Just going to go ahead and clean everything off as I'm kind of into this right now and keep washing all that gunk down in there. Now after this, I'm going to get into a few other maintenance things that I'm going to do on the tractor today. Now I'm not doing scheduled maintenance for the most part. It's just more checking fluids, coolant levels, axle levels, or the oil and the axle levels, all kinds of different things like that, because I'm going for a pretty good drive tomorrow. I'm going to be a good ways away from the house. I'll have extra hydraulic fluid with me, tools, filters, all kinds of things that are going to go with me on a trip. But this is really preparing. Now this is some old areas that I'm going to go ahead and clean around the fuel tank. And then we're going to actually clean all the glass and all that. But that sounds kind of silly, because actually by the time I'm done tomorrow, this thing's going to be dirty again. It's going to have dust. It's going to be drawing stuff back into this again, but you've just got to go through a repeat basis. And I love this machine. Everything's pretty clean, good enough for an operation. Again, I can wipe some places and probably get some more off, but we're getting the major stuff off. Big dust. Stuff off the nipples on the hydraulic. It was just from that pressure washer. That's going to make a little bit less to do when I go to put the loader back on. And we're still dripping out stuff that is coming out of those exchangers. So here's one of the things I've gotten a lot of material out of these, but I'm going to have to put this on another long maintenance day. I mean, if you're trying to schedule 5 days a week work with tractor work, excavators, stuff like that, I think you pretty much need 1 day each week that's just maintenance. And I kind of have a suspicion that what I need to do is actually do some uninstallation, move some exchangers out and actually soak them, use some coil cleaner. Now I don't have corrosion, I don't have algae like I would use coil cleaner on an HVAC unit. I have more dirt and dust, which the coil cleaner doesn't necessarily get out of there. So maybe in 50 hours or so, I think it's something I just need to go ahead and do it on like maybe a 250 hour basis, or just as needed as I see it, and I just don't think it's clean enough. If it's 80% good and 20% clogged, it's still an issue. I wish there was a better screen system than what slips in here through the side and what goes over the front side here. I'll discuss that on a review, but I'm gonna go on to some maintenance checking things as this is dripping and drying. Level's good. Of course, it's starting to get black. It does that with diesel engines, but I will be changing the oil on this more frequently than the schedule calls for, because that's just what we do. We have the coolant reservoir. So again, everybody may know this that's watching the video, but as the engine warms up and the system warms up, pressure, this is going to go up. So this is full hot, and this is the lowest that it can be when it's cold. So we've got it right in the middle. Color and everything looks good in that. No black algae, blah, other stuff in there. So coolant reservoir is good. Next is our fuel water separator. You'll see this ring floats here. There is some junk. That is actually water at this part, and this is diesel fuel above it. And I can actually see some floaty, crusty, yucky, boogery, whatever you want to call it, kind of stuff in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go get a hose and connect to that just to get over to a container or a small. I may just get the small. I always save a gosh, what am I trying to say? Measuring cup, glass ones for a lot of this kind of work around engines. They're great. I got different sizes out here. So I'm gonna grab one, probably just stick under there. We're gonna go ahead and drain it and get this water and gunk off the bottom. It's not actually at a critical issue, but you can imagine if you didn't pay attention to this and this started getting higher and higher and you have this as water, and I'm gonna be snow plowing this winter, and that would be really bad if this was a lot of water in there and it freezes and expands and has an issue. So let me go get something, we'll drain that off. All right, so I set out a variety of measuring cups. I can't find all that variety. So I did keep a pitcher that has a little chip in the glass up here, so we took that out of service in the kitchen. But it's a great thing. I'll clean it out every once in a while, wipe it out, just use it for some of these fluids, but I know it's not gonna, well, it would break, but we can get this in here, I do believe. All right, that is water that's coming out of the bottom of this, and you're seeing the red ring go down. We'll go ahead and let this go for a little bit. Obviously, the back of the tractor, we're going to check the hydraulic fluid level. So we're looking at a bubble window here and a fill point here. But I know that I just topped this off just a couple days ago. Actually, on the last video, you saw the bush hogging day with the deer hunting. So it's really kind of hard to see. We are not level, but I want to put it halfway between that window. We're at a tilt. But if I can get low enough, you can actually see the top of the fluid right up in the window. But if you are not 100% sure that you see that, you had better put some hydraulic fluid in it. And I will stick with the Kubota fluid in this just for, I don't know, loving the tractor and all that good stuff. But, all right, so I'm good on fluid there. Next thing I'm going to look at is I can tell the bulge in the tires pretty much when it's normal and should be good. These are loaded, ballast loaded tires, so it's full of the liquid. Should be about 80% or so. Right up about in there, that is filled with ballast. But what I'm going to do is make sure that you know what your tire pressure is. Mine happens to be 23 PSI. So I'm going to go get the gauge here in a second, look at it. But when I'm doing this service, I will do my best to get this on the top side, because I don't want it on the bottom necessarily, and what I'm going to get out is a lot of the ballast material, or the ballast liquid. When I'm trying to check the pressure, I put it on the top side. And I'll do the same thing with the front, check those. And now I don't have ballast or ability to load it here if I'm leaking it. I have had some come out. We'll discuss that in another video, but but I want to check the pressure just real quick. Not been an issue, but again, I'm going distance. I just got to make extra sure of everything. Okay, next on to the front axle. We need to check that the fluid is good in the axle. Now I've seen other videos where some of these checkpoints and fill points are actually on the right side. Mine is on the left. So what I'm going to be doing, and actually I'm not going to do it right now again because I am not actually enough on level ground. I'm enough to know where the oil level is going to be, but I'm not on level enough ground to really want to check this for this, because we have such a long space in the front axle that a tilt could make a lot of difference in fluid from one side to the other. But basically, I check this point here. This is, it won't be higher than when I take this bolt out, and then I'll fill here, and I'll fill it till it starts to come out here, and then close that off. But I'll do that in a little while just to check that when I'm on flat ground under the shop. Next is the air filter. There are 3 of these clasps that hold this cup on that has the air filter inside of actually a 2-piece element. Here's the second one, and the third one is back in there. Now I'll bring this up, I think sometime when I do my list, thinking about a review. Again, when I do my review, it's going to be one of those where, yeah, I'm going to find some stuff I think should have been different. I would love to see an improvement on. But overwhelmingly, I love the tractor. It is what it is. If you ever complain about a certain piece of equipment, but it's actually doing the specifications that it stated when you bought it, then that's your fault for not saying, well, it doesn't have enough horsepower, doesn't have brakes on this thing, or I don't know, whatever it is. If you failed to look at the specifications, that's your problem for the machine. Maybe you shouldn't have bought it if you don't like that. So I accepted this with all things on specifications, but there are some minor things I was just like, why'd they do that? Well, that's on every piece of equipment I've ever found from any manufacturer, but the air filter is one of them. It's not the filter itself, It's this dadgum clip right here. Is it hard to get to? Yes. But that's not even the problem. The problem is when I go to get this, and I'm going to check this probably during a long road scraping day because it's dusty, I'm drawing in stuff, the filter gets clogged. I could tell the engine performance once the air filter is clogged. And then I've got to come out here and clean this thing off out on the road somewhere. And my hand has to go right next to this, which is incredibly hot. It will burn you. And I just don't like this setup. That should have been something that's thought of. But once I get that out of the way, you can see the filter. It is dirty. I'm going to take this filter out. You've seen me probably another video somewhere I did with the filter. It's probably, yeah, a little bit's flying off of it. I'm going to get the air compressor on it again, clean it before tomorrow. You have the inner filter, or I'm not sure what the technical term for it is. That's staying in place. It's pretty clean. But I'm going to go clean this and put it back in. It's going to be time pretty soon to go ahead and replace this. As much as I can clean it, eventually a percentage of the elements and stuff it's going to get through or be clogged, it's going to be more than this can handle. And even though I may be able to blow it out, I just need to put a new one in. All right, not the normal tractor maintenance before a job kind of a thing, but a few things I'm going to look at this time with the attachment. And one of those is I have some more spacers I'm going to go ahead and put in. Some stuff's a little bit sloppy there. But also, I'm going to see if I can take the blades off. This was very easy to turn here. And this is a 1 3/4. I'm fortunate to be able to have these sockets because these were my dad's. And made in China. But you know what? Some of these toolkits are so expensive and some of these things you use so rarely. Sometimes some of the stuff's been great, other times it's been crap. But these seem to be pretty good. But the test is going to be this time is if my rigid gun will actually go just take these off while we're sitting here, and then I'll raise up the deck after I get both of them and see if we do some sharpening. After that, we're going to look at the fluid levels in the gearbox to check that. Again, these are all things that are failure points that you don't expect, but we tend to probably not pay good enough attention to. So I'm going to see if I can get this this nut off of this blade. Well, guess what? I'm a little out of breath. The rigid did great. I mean, for the first one, it got it undone. Got an adapter for 3/4. But it's time to get out my dad's ratchet. Put some pressure on this thing. I'm not setting up the camera to do this while I do it, but it just needed some more torque. Man, those things are getting really hot on the tip and on the connection of that extension there, but we'll see if we can get it. Yeah, well, anyway, that didn't work either. Man, it's tight. So I'll put this extension on here, piece of steel. We're going to put some leverage on it and see if this will break this. No wonder the gun wouldn't do it, but we'll see if we can get this done with this piece on there. All right, so let's look at our blade angles and sharpening a little bit more and why we're going to do what we're going to do. Another angle is some shadowing. You can see some stuff's just been whacked just really hard. Getting pretty blunt here on that. Again, this is still whacking grass and stuff in a field and bush hogging it down just like in the last 3 videos in Madison. But what we're going to do is we're going to shave some of this down with a grinder a little bit. But let me explain a couple things, let's say metallurgy, about the metal and what would happen. So if I take this angle right here and I make this like a razor knife, very thin, and it is super sharp, like it's going to cut steaks and slice them so nicely. But once I hit the first thing, the rock, whatever like that, it is going to be seriously dulled right away because it's so thin on the taper, it suddenly bludgeons back. So we're really looking for, what if we had something that was almost like square edged metal that is going to be more strong than if we were just trying to do a razor sharp edge. So we're not going to shave this down and grind this down to a sharp edge. We may come to a very sharp bevel, something like that, that's going to hit some stuff. So obviously the metal is going to wear differently, going to hit things differently, and we don't want it to just wear out prematurely. The other issue is what we're going to hit and how we cut it and what effect does it have on the area we have. So let's say that we have a very sharp blade. I hope we can see this okay. So a very sharp blade may take and slice very nicely. And then what do we have? Pretty much a punji stake. Now I just actually went out and cut this little piece out near the shop to demonstrate the two, but if this was a sapling 1 inch in diameter or 3/4, and we're actually truly cutting brush, bush hogging, then you have something like this. What would you call this? More like a punji stake. So if this is there, you cut it and slice it nicely, and then here it is for your tire to run over and penetrate, and that actually feels pretty sharp on my hand. So one thing for your tractor, these would be like punji stakes on your tractor tires, but also what about people? If you're cutting super sharp, and this is where people walk, may trip and fall, it really is quite hazardous. Versus if the blunter we have an edge, we want to just, non-technical terms, beat the living fire out of whatever we're trying to hit. So it kind of bludgeons it to pieces and shreds and leaves something like this. This is a very different feel than this on my hand. So I'm going to just grind this down a little bit. We're not going to do anything fancy to it. We're not going to hone it. We're not going to put a leather strap on it, anything like that. We're just going to reform it a little bit. I hope that made sense. But think about the safety of how you're cutting and how sharp, and really doesn't matter. We're just trying to get the field cut down, brush cut down or whatever with this type of a thing. Now, if we have grass, I may want a much sharper blade to manicure a lawn, but that's not what we're going to be doing tomorrow. We've got acres and acres to do in a field and cut brush and several things. So I want to get on to grinding. All right, the next thing is all of the hardware points here, the washers, nuts and all that. I'm going to brush those down because one of the functions still that is very important with the blade is that you've got a long piece here. Let me back this up. You have a long piece, so when that out there hits something, you have some breakaway force, and they give. So it's important that this doesn't get more resistant out here. So I'm actually just going to brush everything down before I put it back together. And we're pretty close. And we're going to chain there on the tractor and put the mat in the back and just get ready for tomorrow morning. All right, cannot see real well, but we are underneath the bush hog. What? It's crazy. It's unsafe. But we have some blocks here at the very back, right next to my hip, that are holding up the back. We've raised this this up so that it's pretty level, but as high as it will go. if it's tilted, you'll get a pendulum swing, and the heavy one blade will want to swing to the bottom. So we try to get it as high as possible, get it flattened out. But this is it's easiest from the top to unbolt that screw, or excuse me, the nut there, and then this is going to fall out the bottom. No big deal. And then the washer is going to be up top on the plate here. But to put them back on, you pretty much got to be underneath. You can't hold it up. Again, I don't have a second person, so that would be awesome. So everything's ready here. I'm just going to set the camera down. I don't really have room under here to film or anything else. I'm just going to get both of these on, chain this thing down. It's getting late. If you can't notice, it's dark out here. And I spent some time grilling a ribeye and some shrimp. And I'm getting tired. So I'm just going to get this back on, get it ready for service tomorrow, and call it a day. And then I'll just do a wrap up here at the end. Well, let's just throw another step in here. There's a keyway, a couple threaded things that are barbed to just fit one direction, so that this part that my palm is on, I can't let go of it right now, but so that part will not spin, but the blade will when it hits something hard. So I've got to hold on to this, but it's been keyed into the right spot. And let me get this nut on top of this, and we'll be good. We'll tighten it from the top though. Well, hey, this is what it's like in the dark. I've got light underneath. I could turn on the light here, but I can see what I need to do. Got ambient lighting coming from the shop over here, but got the stem on with 1 3/4 inch, but I'm getting ready to put the gun on. Well, you can't even see it out here, but I'm gonna put that on and get this one tightened up and put the second one on. All right, for some reason I did not hit record right when I was checking the fluid level in the gearbox. For that, everything's fine there. I'm getting ready to put this stuff up. Everything on the tractor is good to go. Feel great about it, ready to roll tomorrow. I have extra fluids on the truck, extra hydraulic fluid, extra oil filter. I carry all kinds of extra parts ready for anything that may kind of happen, but you know, not everything. It's hard to prepare everything. I've still got to put the mat back in the floorboard for when I was doing the electrical work. But the tractor's good to go. There'll be other stuff. Another day I'll update what all I carry in here, including the Vigo socket that we did that. I mean, if these things happen to come loose, whatever, I've got that with me with the impact gun with rigid. Been great rigid tools. I'll review those another day, but lots of extra pins, all kinds there. The only thing I got to do really on the truck, there's the old salt spreader ready to do some other play in here soon, but I got to check the oil, coolant level, basics on the tire. All the tires are good, but we just got to have a safe trip. It's actually quite a ways. We're traveling from Buncombe County, North Carolina to Rutherford County. So pretty good drive and a long day of bush hogging to do, but a really blessed time. And I'll tell you what, be excited about this because I'm actually doing this for my pastor, Tim. That's the pastor at New Hope Community Church of Asheville. Really good friend of mine, but a wonderful pastor as well. So he actually has some scripture and a little bit of really good lesson that we're going to slip into a video tomorrow. So when you see the videos for Rutherford County, there's going to be some extra stuff from Tim in there in the middle. I told him to be ready for it, and he said he's ready. But we're going to have a blessed day. He's going to be bringing his dad, and just really a good day of friends, some work, and hoping that my pastor has a tremendous hunting season, getting away from all that we demand of him. But even if it's your friend that you're going to go do such a piece of work for, like I did a few days for some other friends of mine, you still need to do the same maintenance prep. It's just as serious as any paid job that you'll ever do. So tomorrow is free, but you do it just as professional as you do any other day. Y'all take care, and I hope you learned something from this. Take care. Bye-bye.